Welcome to Copy That. I'm Lauren O'Quinn here with casting director Matthew Sefick. And today's special guest is actor Brandon Larracuente. Brandon started as a child actor off-Broadway. And as a teen, he went on to appear in hit shows like The Glades, Baywatch, Constantine, Nickelodeon's Every Which Way, and of course as Jeff Atkins in the mega Netflix hit 13 Reasons Why. Brandon just starred in the reboot of Party of Five. He has millions of followers on social media, and he works out far more than the average human. He's also one of the biggest sweethearts in the industry, so we're super glad to have him here today. Hi, Brandon.
Hello, Miss Lauren. Nice to be here.
See, you did it. Full disclosure, everyone. I've known Brandon since he was much, much younger. I've actually gotten to watch him grow up, basically. So I still get called Miss Lauren, which is the sweetest thing and also makes me want to throw myself off the bridge. Both of those things are true.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me, guys. To do this with you guys.
Oh, we're thrilled.
Yeah, we are. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you, Lauren,
Absolutely.
for your help getting everything together. So most people right now seem to be interested in how everybody else is spending their time in quarantine and whether or not they're accomplishing anything productive. But what are you doing with your time?
Right now I'm in Florida. We're spending some time with our families here, but we drove cross country from California about a week and 4 days from California. And prior to that, we were just in our apartments, quarantining, leaving the house only when we had to get some groceries. But right now I've been self-taping from home, spending a lot of time with my parents, Jasmine's parents, my fiance, getting my tan on. I mean, working out, walking my dog, there's really nothing else to do but just enjoy each other for the moment, for the time being.
Yeah. When do you anticipate going back to LA, Brandon? Any idea?
We're hoping July. We're hoping July because we have a few meetings that we have to attend, whether it's Zoom or whatnot, sometime in July. So we're thinking that by July we should be ready to go back home.
Sure. Good. Now, full disclosure, like I said, I've known you a long time, and I've actually gotten the opportunity to work with you for years and years. You and I taped together multiple times a week. And so I really got to watch you grow in the industry. Can you tell us how you got started in the business?
Sure. I got started because of my mom. My mom, I was predominantly a baseball player all my life. I love the sport of baseball, but my mom, she always wanted to involve me in some sort of theatrical program, whether it was at school or after school. And I enjoyed it. But I think the huge reason why I shied away from it was because I received a lot of ridicule from people. Right away, you're a part of the thespian society and people look at you weird. And, I would get comments from other players on the baseball team and whatnot. And I was just so embarrassed to be a part. I remember one day, I booked a commercial via, I think it was Mark Mullen. It was like Universal or something. I can't remember. I booked a commercial. I went to high school. I was a freshman, and some girl goes, "I saw you on TV last night." And I'm like, "Saw me on TV? Where?" She's like, "On a commercial." I was like, "No, that wasn't me." And that was the first time that anybody has recognized me on television. And I didn't know how to take it. I was so uncomfortable, I guess, in my own skin at the time. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I wanted to go with my life, whether it was baseball or acting. But, through high school, I was able to audition for a bunch of great television shows, most specifically Bloodline, which at the time was called Untitled KZK Project. And
I still remember that.
Yeah. And I ended up booking that. And within 24 hours, I would say my life changed. My dad and I drove down to the Keys, which is about 6 hours away. Showing up to a set where I had no idea who was a part of the cast, what it was about, but it opened up a lot of doors for me.
Yeah, and you got to work with Sissy Spacek and Kyle Chandler.
She's a sweetheart, yeah, I did.
I know. I remember I was so excited when that happened for you because that was such a big deal. And now, cut to a few years later, you have literally millions of followers on the social media platforms. How has your life changed since you've become an influencer?
My life, around my family, my friends and stuff, hasn't really changed. Just when I step out the door, into the real world, I just have to watch everything I do, because now it feels like there's always a constant eye on you, whether, you might go somewhere to a restaurant and somebody knows you, or go out to a bar with your friends. You have to kind of hold yourself, my parents always raised me, there are always eyes on you. And, act in a way that, if your parents were there, would you act the same way? If people you highly respect, would you act the same way? So I try to just always hold myself in a very high standard, no matter where I go. But but aside from that, really, my personal life hasn't changed much. I like to believe I still am the same person that I was, when I moved from Florida to California. I still have the same family and friend, family you can't get rid of.
No, you're stuck with them, right?
But the same friend group, I had the same friend group I did, since high school.
Yeah. And as someone who knows you personally, I can say that I don't see an enormous change in you. And you're fortunate. Your parents, man, they really did raise you in a specific way. Your mom and dad are former police officers, and they raised you to respect authority and to show up and do what's supposed to be done. A lot of discipline, a lot of focus put on work ethic. And that's, I think, one of the things that has really paid off for you. And also, I think you had the advantage, you and I've talked about this before, your parents really, really believed in you, and they always went above and beyond to help you pursue what it was that you wanted to do. Do you feel like that's really paid off for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I know a lot of actor friends who their parents did not support them, growing up, because it's not a secure industry. There are times where you're working and then the next week you're out of a job, once again, in the rat race looking for a new job. But my parents from the beginning, no matter what I wanted to do, whether it was play baseball, become a doctor, an astronaut, no matter what it was, they always supported me. And that's tough to find. So I'm very grateful for that. But on the other side of that, now that I'm older and I found, I'm now engaged, I think it's so important now that, like, once you move out of the house, it's important to find that person, that partner, who also supports you. And no matter what life throws at you, they're there with you, because, it's been tough, living out in California. There are some days, like you talked about, that work ethic that my parents have instilled in me. There are some days where I just want to move back home because it sounds like it's easier, but I'm lucky to have a partner who pushes me to my limits and, makes me be my best self every day. And if I can't give my best self, she gives, the other 50% that I can't offer her. So.
Yeah. And she's a good one. I can attest to that too. She also knew you before any of this kind of stuff started to happen for you. So there's never been a question of the fact that she's in it for the right reasons and stuff. As you meet new people now, do you sometimes wonder if this person is befriending you for the right reasons?
When I first moved out to LA and right after 13, I did. But I think having parents who are we're both in law enforcement I have a great ability to read people, and I can tell when people are genuine, which is why I don't have many friends. And I use this word loosely because I have many acquaintances out in California, but I don't have many friends out there because it's so hard to find genuine people who just want to create relationships with you for nothing other than just because they enjoy your company,
Right.
'cause it's a tough industry, and I don't blame the people who are seeking, a way to climb the ladder of success. I don't blame them because it's hard, and to catch that quote unquote big break. It takes a lot of time and consistency and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
And so since we last met, you've booked, like you mentioned, Bloodline and 13 Reasons Why and Party of Five. So a lot has changed, and you touched on this a little bit, but what's the one constant that has stayed the same?
I think the hunger and the work ethic and the respect for any opportunity that I get, no matter what the job is, no matter what audition comes in, I treat it the same way I would, if I was just starting out. I still have that hunger and desire to want to create and to learn from others and whatnot, no matter if I'm on Party of Five or 13 Reasons Why. I'm always looking to one, soak in the experience, and two, take something away from it, because I believe no matter what the situation, negative or positive, you can always take something away and use that to propel you in other situations in the future.
Let's talk auditioning. When you lived in Orlando, as we talked about, we were taping together multiple times a week, a lot of the time. You had representation here in Orlando and then in Central Florida, and then that spread, and you also got representation out in Los Angeles. And so then you were getting auditions from both coasts. We were taping the vast majority of them. Are you still taping most of your auditions, or how often are you going out in person?
Prior to quarantine, I was going in person a lot. I prefer going in person because you can interact with the casting director, you can talk to them, they can get a sense of who you are and what you're about. But since quarantine, I've just been doing self tapes from home. and in our small little apartment in Los Angeles, not here, where I have a whole setup, for self-taping.
Nice.
Yeah. Jasmine's dad, he does videos himself, like motivational speaking. So I've been making this my little self-tape area.
Oh, good.
But at home, But at home, we just have a ring light, a camera, and that's about it. But we make do with what we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But you said you prefer to be in the room. I'm the same way. I love to get in the room and work with the casting director, but we don't get that opportunity very much in the Southeast anymore. But you're finding you do get it more often in Los Angeles still.
Absolutely. I do. And I'm very fortunate for that because, like I said, I feel like my work is better because I can like feed off of the person who I'm reading with, or I can get a sense, or if I have any questions, I can ask them that, they're in person instead of, sending off a tape, waiting for feedback if you ever even get feedback, or having to email them. I just love being in the room. There's nothing better than that.
What was that audition that we did, Brandon, where you had to wear a bra and I had to give you a bra to wear?
I have no idea.
I don't remember what it was for, but I so wish I'd saved that tape, man.
I so wish I would have booked that so we could have laughed even more, but I can't believe you remember that. I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up.
That one was pretty memorable. I will never forget, you were like maybe 19 and all muscular, and I'm like, I mean, I can hand you this bra, but I don't think it's going to snap. And you're like putting it just over your shoulder. Mm-hmm. Oh, hilarious. We had the best time.
I got to use the restroom like mid audition, and I walked out and Chris was like,
what's happening?
I don't want to know. Oh man, but those are the things I enjoy, the memories you make along the way, the experiences, the people you meet, like you guys. I'm so appreciative for every opportunity that I received, because without them, without even the auditions that I did not book, we wouldn't have had those memories.
Absolutely. And I think that's important for actors to hear, because you were auditioning all of the time. I mean, sometimes, some weeks it might be twice a week. Some weeks you might have 3 or 4 auditions, and it would vary. But the point was that you were auditioning regularly, but the numbers game that we play as actors, we still only book a very small percentage of those. It only takes 1 or 2, right? Bloodline was a huge launching pad for you. 13 Reasons Why. We originally taped that audition for a different role than the role that you booked. Right. So those kinds of things, actors don't often realize. They think about the things that they're not getting. And I think you're a great example of the fact that it's not about what you're not getting. It's about the ones that you are. And it's about the fact that you're creating a body of work.
Absolutely. And you're building relationships. If a casting director, you guys know this, but if a casting director loves your work, although you might not be right for this role, they'll bring you in again and again. If you just consistently, provide them a body of work that's, that can speak for itself. Living out in California, it's tough because, when I first moved out there, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any casting directors, but over time, I would receive auditions and I knew that I wasn't right for the role, but I would still go in because I wanted to create those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matt definitely, he has such a great memory for actors. And I think that's an important aspect of being a good casting director. And so, Matt, you are often auditioning actors and you think they're not right for this role, but you keep them in mind for something else, correct?
Yes, I think that happens frequently. I mean, when I met with Meg Lieberman at CBS, she said she felt like she was a better casting director when she was casting multiple projects, because she might see somebody for something that they might not have been right for, but hey, they might be right for this other project that she was working on. So how do you typically prepare for an audition?
It depends on the role. I love to read the script once or twice if I have, an ample amount of time. If I have like maybe 2 or 3 days, I read it once and then I just let that sit with me. My biggest problem is I tend to overthink things so much, and rather than just beating a dead horse, I'll work on my sides. I'll just read through them, not even try and not even out loud, just get what's going on. I'll try to get a better understanding of what's happening in the scene, and where the scene needs to go and where's the arc of the scene. I'll just read through it for the first couple of days, and then that way it's just in my brain. And what I'll do is, Jasmine's such a great partner. I'll sit down with her and I'll say, honey, I want to talk to you about my audition. She goes, okay, sit. So I talk her through it, and it might not be spot on word for word, but I'll tell her, this is going on, and I'll explain the whole thing to her. That helps me sink it even deeper into my brain. That way, by the time I'm at the read or doing the self-tape, the last thing I'm thinking about is the words. I already know what's happening. I already know how the scene starts, how it ends, what's going on. I'm just now in the moment.
Love that. Definitely.
Over the years, what have you learned most about the auditioning process?
I still get nerves. The nerves will never go away. And I've done everything from cutting coffee. I've done everything to breathing techniques, but I'm starting to get comfortable with the nerves. The nerves are there, and they, in a way, fuel me, because once I say that first line or once we start, they're gone. And there are some auditions where I leave and I'm like, I don't know what I just did. I didn't plan for that to happen, but it just happened. One of my, I like to say, my greatest auditions I feel like ever, and I booked the job, was because I felt so free that I left that audition and I called Jasmine and I said, honey, I don't know what I just said in there, but I mean, hey, let's see if it works. I ended up booking it. I auditioned for Bright, which was the Netflix Will Smith film, and I was supposed to play this orc. I received the audition the night before, like at 8 o'clock at night. I had to be in Santa Monica at like 10 in the morning. So I worked on it. It was just a very short scene. But on the way there, when I was in bed, I was like, how do I play this? It was like 3 lines, and those are the worst, because you're like, how do I say this line? You know, do I say it this way or this way? It was a scene where I think you have to like, I had a gun to someone, and obviously, you know, most casting directors frown upon props. You know, they don't really like props being brought into the room, especially not a gun, of course. So
Weird.
Yeah. So I pantomimed everything, and when I did the scene or in my head, I was just gonna do it from across the room. And you know, when casting directors set up, you know, they put a little black tape on the floor, and they're like 15 feet away from you with the camera. I said the hell with that, and I went right up to her because she was reading with me, and I did the scene as if we were standing next to each other. And an hour after I left the room, I booked.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a call, and she said, David Ayer wants to see you today, in about an hour, and like LA. Some studio in Los Angeles. I went there, did it the same way, and I booked. But that doesn't always work. I didn't plan it. It wasn't something that was pre-planned. I just was in the moment, and I went with my gut. And that's a thing. A lot of times, my gut's like, no, they won't like that, or that's silly. Everybody will do that. But just being in the moment is really the best thing, the best advice I can give any actor in a room. Do not pre-plan anything.
Yeah, to not pre-plan, and also not to make choices based out of fear. I'm so afraid they won't like this, right? I'm so afraid that I'll get it wrong. And I think then we play it safe, and then who remembers safe, right? We got to be
Right.
truthful and in the moment, like you said.
Right, but it has to make sense too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, for the integrity of the piece, you can't just tap dance because you thought it'd be cool and memorable.
Yes.
Unless you're Chris Burns, he can tap dance, but the rest of us not. Matt and I got to talk to Sterling K. Brown a couple of weeks ago, and it reminded me of what you were just saying, that, you know, he said that he now thinks of the nerves like an athlete preparing for a big game. And so he's like, okay, yes, I'm going to think of it as like anticipation instead of nervousness. And so that has helped him kind of corral the nerves. And I think that's important as an actor. We have to know that the nerves don't necessarily go away. It's just that professionals learn how to control the nerves instead of letting the nerves control us.
Absolutely. Allowing it to fuel you. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuel you. Exactly. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me is having a hobby. You know, although acting is how I pay my bills right now, it has been for over the past 5 years since I've been in California, and I'm very fortunate that I have not had to, you know, result to other jobs. I've actually, no, that's a lie. When I first moved to California, I was dog walking just to pay rent, just to get by, because I love dogs. And I was like, you know, this could be a great opportunity. And then I shortly booked 13, and ever since then I've been working consistently by the grace of God. But I think having a hobby, whether it's photography, painting, going on hikes, it's good because you're not just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. You know, you're actually living life. And then if the phone rings, great.
Any audition horror stories that you remember, Brandon? Maybe a time that you bombed the audition and you walked out thinking that didn't go so well.
Do I? I have 2 in mind. When I first came out to LA, you know, when I went into a casting director's office, I'm not going to say who, but I went into her office, and the casting associate brought me in, and I was very, very nervous because it was a great project. And the casting director walks in, and she's like, all right. So you ready? We're doing this? I'm like, okay, cool. We're doing it. Let's say my first line was like, you know, what are you doing here? I might have said, why are you here? And she stopped mid audition, and she's like, really? She's like, do you want to look at this again? And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. We're good. And then we did the audition. The nerves went away. I let it fuel me. We finished, and she looks at me and she goes, how long you been out here for? I'm like, well, 3 months, so far. And she turns to her casting associate and goes, 3 months. Look at this guy. She's like, I'll see you again one day, but yeah. And then she just walked out of the room. And I was just like, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. You know what's crazy?
Wow.
You want to know what's crazy? I got a producer session off of that. I didn't book, but I got a producer session off of that. So I didn't take it personally, because I don't know what she's going with, what's happening in her personal life. But yeah, it's not pleasant for an actor, especially for one who's fresh out in LA, doesn't know anybody, and is super, super nervous. Another time, and you guys are gonna love this. I hadn't gotten a call back in about maybe 5 or 6 auditions, and my manager calls me and he says, "You need to take bolder choices." And I said, "Okay, bolder choices." So I had an audition for a very, very popular casting director from a sitcom show in the 90s, and it was a comedy. And I went in there, and the character I was playing was very neurotic, and he was unpredictable. So I was playing with this idea for a couple of days, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. What do I have to lose? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to make, bold choices. So after the scene, the character in the scene walks out of the room. He walks out. I took it upon myself to walk out of the entire casting office, and I never came back in the room. And it was on the Paramount lot. So I'm running through the Paramount lot, and I call my manager. I'm like, Abe, I just did this. I want you to call her now and just make sure like she knows it was an actor's choice. It wasn't that I was trying to be disrespectful. I just let it be funny, whatever. It could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone, she said, this kid is freaking brilliant, or I never want to see him again. Unfortunately for me, she never wants to see me again. So
that's a great story.
I made a bold choice. I wrote her an email afterwards telling her, apologizing. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. But yeah.
I love that. That's a great story. Can you tell us anything about the process of auditioning for and booking 13 Reasons Why?
Yes. I think I auditioned for a few different characters, and I auditioned for 2 other characters. Due to scheduling conflicts because of Bloodline, I could not be a series reg on that show. Yeah. So the writer of the show, the creator, the showrunner, Brian Yorkie, was very, very gracious enough to still write me in as Jeff. Although Jeff Atkins was not a character in the book, he was, but he wasn't mentioned. He didn't really have, there wasn't a character background on him. He kind of just gave me the character and let me go wild. Whatever interpretation I had of the character, he was okay with. And I think I was in about 6-7 episodes, but in those 6-7 episodes, I was able to establish some sort of backstory with the main character Clay and whatnot. But yeah, it was tough because when you find out you book something, and then when the network that I was working with that had the conflict tells me that I can't do it because of a scheduling conflict, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow because, of course, you're like looking around and you're like, okay, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to live here. And you have this whole plan, but it happens all the time. It happens all the time. That's why until the contract is signed,
Yeah, and I'd like to use that as an example because I was fortunate enough to have you share that story with me as it was happening. And you were heartbroken, and I was heartbroken for you because a series regular opportunity at that time was it still is a huge deal. But what's interesting is that I thought that it's a great moral of the story because you didn't let it discourage you and you didn't let it get you down. And then the showrunner was so impressed with you that he wrote a role specifically for you. Yep. And that role turned out to be a breakout role for the before the series, because Jeff was one of the few characters that was like all good. He had these redeeming qualities and everybody rooted for him. And you wore that white suit. And I think that white suit might have been the most reposted picture ever from a television show. So, it all worked out like it should, but it certainly doesn't feel like it at the time, does it?
Of course not, because you're in the middle of the storm, and it's a really tough pill to swallow. But it's important to have a great support system, whether it's an acting coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a family friend or a partner, and that really helped get me through a tough time. But like you said, when one door closes, another one opened up, and thanks to 13 Reasons Why and to Brian Yorkie, tons of opportunities and doors have opened for me. So
yeah, that show dealt with some really heavy topics like bullying and teen suicide. How did working on it and the public reaction to it affect you?
Working on the show, we went in with no expectations. First of all, we really didn't know what to expect because you're dealing with such heavy topics. We didn't know how it would, be publicly received. And there was, of course, with everything, there's, people who love the show, people who criticize it because they feel like, we glorified something. But we know what our intentions were making the show. We know that we wanted to spread awareness and to shine light on topics that people really aren't willing to talk about. Same with Party of Five, same with Party of Five. It dealt with immigration and whatnot. And I feel like, not many people are willing to shine light on it. So kudos to the writers and to the creators for having the guts to pitch this show to a network. And then kudos to the networks for bringing it on.
Absolutely.
If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about getting into the business, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. I like to look at everything as just neutral, and we, whether you get the job or not, whether you don't or you do, I like to just look at it as you have to have your own. You have to have a life outside of the business or of acting, because if not, you'll get consumed in it. For a while, living out in LA after 13, I didn't book for almost a year prior to booking Bright. I think it was about 8 months, and I was like at my wit's end. I had just moved out to California, and I thought that 13 was going to be it. I thought 13 was going to, open up so many doors. And while it did, you still have to put in the work and the time, and like Miss Lauren said, it's a numbers game, and you still have to audition. But just to stay consistent, and that, to really focus on what's important. At the end of the day, your family, your friends are what really matter. And then just everything else is a cherry on top, really.
I'm sure you've had lots of great experiences on set, but is there any particular experience that stands out to you, or a particular cast that you just like, oh, I really think about them when I think about great times on set?
Every experience on set has been really wonderful. The two that I really think about are Bloodline, because I was so young at the time, and I didn't appreciate the opportunity as much as I would have now, because I was so young. And at the time, I think I was still on the fence about whether I really wanted to pursue acting as a full-time passion or full-time career or not. So Bloodline, I wish I can go back in time and soak it in more and enjoy those memories more. But I think Party of Five for me, because it was the first time I had ever been a series regular, and just the cast and the crew, it felt like a family. I mean, from the get-go. And I don't know if you guys were aware, but Party of Five did not get picked up for season 2. So saying goodbye to those people was probably one of the toughest things that I had to do. But at the same time, it's such a small industry, and the people who do work usually tend to, work again together, whether it's 20 years down the line. So I'll see them again. But those two memories are the ones that I cherish the most.
Who's an actor that you admire?
For their acting, and for their humanitarianism, I love to admire Javier Bardem, because he's very big on on climate change and whatnot, and that's something that I'm very passionate about too. Another person is Will Smith, because of his work ethic, and I did a book report on him when I was, I think, in the 2nd grade, and I learned that he was in trouble with the IRS, and he owed them a tons of money because he mismanaged his money. And that's somebody who I really look up to, because to show, although he had plenty of success and fame, all of his money was going to the IRS, because he didn't manage it well. He didn't have the right people in his corner. So I like to learn from other people's mistakes, such as his. So he's somebody else I look up to a lot. I look up to people who are just older than me and have been through it. I mean, people who have made the mistakes, I try and learn from them. There's no reason that I should make the same mistakes, because somebody else in the world has made that mistake. If I don't learn from it, then then it's on me when it does happen.
Could you come talk to my children, Brandon, and just
listen, I had this epiphany come to Jesus moment when I moved out of home, because I appreciated everything that my parents, tried to instill in me as a kid. It just all clicked one day, and I called them and I said, thank you for everything that you guys have always tried to teach me, because it finally clicked. But living at home, of course not. You're a teenager, you think you know everything, and believe me, I came home after that year, my parents were like, who are you?
They're like, what? Yeah, it's true. We don't get it until we have to get it. That's part of maturity, part of growing up and doing it on our own. Did you tell Will Smith that you did a project on him in second grade?
No, I know. I spoke to him, but aside doing a scene with him, I spoke to him at Crafty. But I think I was so nervous, and it's funny. I had to wear prosthetics. I had an orc mask on all day, so I'm at Crafty. I turn around, I bump into him. Oh, I'm so sorry to He's like, oh, no worries, whatever. And I'm talking to him, and at the time I forget that I'm wearing an orc mask and I have fake teeth in my mouth. So I'm casually conversating with him, and he's nodding his head. And I walk back to my seat, and I look at my hands, so they had claws on, and I'm like, I just had a full conversation with Will Smith, and he doesn't even know what I look like. He probably thinks I'm this nutball, but no, I did not get a chance to. But you know what? I'm a firm believer that one day, hopefully, I'll get an opportunity to work with him again, whether it's directly on a project with him or something he's producing, and I'll get to share that story.
I wouldn't doubt it. I saw that movie Bright, and you were definitely unrecognizable. I'm glad that I knew you were in it, so I was looking for you, and I was like, wow, the prosthetics on that were amazing.
It was fun. I think I was in a chair for about 6 hours a day just to put it on. And the makeup team, I mean, oh man, they were by far the best that I've ever worked with. I mean, to have the patience and also the determination and dedication to what they do, I have a new respect for the special effects department.
For sure.
Well, and that'll definitely make for a good story the next time you work with Will Smith.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the next time.
And so you touched on this earlier, but how you prefer to get into the room. But how do you prepare differently for in-person auditions and self-tapes?
Ooh, I prepare for in-person auditions as if they were a play. When you're on stage, I actually started out in theater. So when you're on stage and there's a flub in a line or you forget your line or whatever it is, you keep on going, and there have been a lot of times, like I laugh at that scene in La La Land where like Emma Stone is like doing her audition and the girl behind her is like, what do you want for lunch? Because that has happened. I've been in audition rooms where people have like just walked right in and I've kept on going. So I prepare like a play, but when it's a self-tape, you can do it 15 times and nobody will ever know, but I love to keep each take that I do, even though maybe like the third take as I'm doing it felt the best. When I look back, sometimes it always doesn't translate the way you wanted it to. And I was like, oh, the first scene actually translates, it's better. So yeah, but it's different. It's similar, but different,
I'm sure it varies, but prior to the pandemic, how often were you auditioning? Well, you just did Party of Five. So, I mean, when did you finish shooting Party of Five?
We ended actually on my birthday. We wrapped at midnight. And then after that, I could only go out for movies, for films, because I was still at the time tied to them.
Sure.
But now I'm able to go out for series regs, episodics,
I was so sad to see that, unfortunately, Party of Five was not renewed for a second season. It seemed to be loved by both critics and viewers alike. It just was one of those shows that for some reason didn't find the viewer foothold that it should have. But yeah. How did you prepare for that role? Did you watch the original Party of Five?
You know what? I'm the only cast member who did not watch it because although it's the same creators and the same title and more or less the same concept, 5 siblings who are going through a tough time in their life. I didn't want to try and replicate anything or duplicate what was already done so well back in the 90s. I wanted to kind of bring my own take into it. But I do know that like Nico, Emily, and Al, who play my siblings in the show, they watched the show a couple times just to get a sense of what it was about. But no, I just wanted to try something new and to bring a fresh take into it. But yeah, I was surprised when it wasn't renewed for a season 2. But also at the same time, I'm grateful for the opportunity. And my only hope is that people were able to take something away from it. I hope that Hispanics, immigrants, whoever watched the show, they were able to, they felt represented. And finally, for the first time, there was somebody who looked like them, who spoke like them, who went through the same struggles that they're going through in their life. Finally, they were represented on screen. And, I think it's a sign that we're going in the right direction. I mean, over the past 10 years, we've seen that with the African-American community. They've had much more representation on screen than maybe, 50 years ago. And now we're seeing it with Latins and with the Asian community. So it's, as much as there's, stuff going on in the world right now that it seems like, it's the end times, as people say, there's so much good, that's happening at the same time that we should not ignore.
I agree. As a Hispanic actor yourself, how often do you get to use the fact that you're bilingual in your auditions? Do you get to use Spanish very often?
Uh, Pretty often, pretty often. I tend to go in for roles that are just open to any gender
Mhm.
or open to any ethnicity, should I say. And also, yeah, well, whenever I do get the opportunity to speak my native language, I love it. I do. And sometimes even if they don't ask me to, I'll maybe when I slate, I'll say my name in Spanish and I'll say, a thing or two. I'm based out of Los Angeles, California, but all in Spanish, just to flex that muscle. And I'm proud. I'm proud of my roots and who I am and of my grandparents from migrating from Puerto Rico years ago. So anytime I can, I do.
So how do you see the industry coming out of this pandemic?
Oh, I'll tell you what, there'll be a lot more self tapes.
Mm.
I don't know that there's going to be really anybody who's doing meetings in person at least until next year, or at least that's how it seems in Los Angeles. I have a buddy of mine who's now looking at agents right now. He's taking meetings, and it's all been done through Zoom or through FaceTime or Skype. So I don't see us going back to normal anytime soon. I think this is the new normal, at least for a while.
Yeah, I agree. We're so glad that you came and joined us, Brandon.
Of course.
I really hope that you continue to use your amazing platform for good, which I know that you will, because, if this whole acting thing doesn't work out, you should be a motivational speaker, I think.
You know what? I love speaking more than I do love like doing a post on like an Instagram or Twitter because I'm so bad getting what's in here out and articulating it the way I want it to come out. But when I speak to you guys, I'm just able to just be myself. A lot of times I'll have Jasmine like look over something and I'll say, honey, does this sound like the way I want it to sound? And she's great at writing. So I have her like edit some of my captions or whatnot. But I love just talking with you guys because it's just casual conversation, among people who are as passionate about something as I am.
Yes, yes. So your passion shines, I think, in everything that you do. So
I try.
yeah.
I'm really hard on myself, and I always try and put out the best work possible that I'm capable of. But yeah, it's funny. Acting and the whole industry has really grown on me over the past 10 years. I mean, I've developed such a appreciation for what I'm able to do. I have a good buddy of mine who's been out in LA longer than I have, and he's struggling. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. He's getting his headshots. He's in acting class, but he hasn't received that opportunity yet. And
Mm.
it feels like sometimes like I'm undeserving, or at least that's the way I feel because I haven't put in as much work on paper as maybe half the people out in LA who have been out there for 20 years. So
Mm.
that's why any opportunity that I get, I'm so grateful for it, and I don't take it for granted because it's people would die to be in my shoes or whatnot. So I recognize that.
And that's why we root for you. So see, good people deserve opportunities too.
Thank you, Miss Lauren.
You're the one.
And just like to end these with some parting thoughts. And I'd like to ask people to make sure to get out and vote this November. It's I don't know if it's going to be in person or by mail or however it happens. It's going to be the most important election in our lifetime, and we need to make sure to show up.
Absolutely. To let your voice be heard, no matter where you come from, no matter, how old you are, whether you're a senior citizen or, freshly 18, use your voice. A lot of people, I will say, I used to believe, what is my one vote going to do? How is my one vote going to change, the outcome of the election or whatnot? But I mean, we're powerful together, and with in unity and with our numbers, and if we all stick together, we can create change. I think that's something that the younger generation, even younger than me, like the 18, the 1920s, they have to realize, their voices are, I think, the most powerful, because they are the future,
Absolutely. And we're seeing obviously that, the country is experiencing a lot of pain right now. So I think it's important that we all stand up, whatever that opinion is, and we let it be heard because our vote does count. Every vote counts.
Absolutely. It seems like every time I like look at the news, I don't get on social media as much because I feel like every time I'm on social media, it's always something negative. That's why before I try to say that, no matter if it's a negative situation, we can try and take something positive from it, like coronavirus, you know, or this whole quarantine. At first I was bummed, you know, I didn't want to stay home. Jasmine had to forcefully keep me home because I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to be outdoors. But when she kind of explained it to me and said, this isn't about you, you know, it's about other people. You know, my mom is immune compromised. So if she, you know, happened to get it from somebody who is, you know, selfish enough to go out there without a mask or whatnot, you know, then I would have felt terrible. And I had to put myself in other people's shoes, you know, before I could actually comprehend the magnitude of what's going on. But I hope through quarantine, I know I've been more in touch with my feelings and emotions and things that I was avoiding for years, just by, you know, going to the gym and doing things that just to kind of pass the day. That way I didn't really have to think deeply, but having to be at home in your own thoughts and to really approach things from you know, head on. I've learned more about myself and about my family and about what's important in my life. So in a way, as unfortunate as quarantine is and with what COVID has caused, in a way, I'm grateful for it because it's made me really, really in tune with who I am and what matters to me in life.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when we get quiet and can't stay so busy, right?
Absolutely. That's why I love coming home to Florida, because I feel like in LA, it's the noise. And even if you're not out, even if you stay at home, I always feel like I have to be doing something. You know, I always feel like I can never sit still, but I've been so relaxed here. And I don't know if that's just being in the South or being around family, but I love it.
Well, probably a lot of that is coming home, but I agree, because every time I come home from LA, I don't realize I'm so tense until even like I just fly in and I come out of the airport and I'm like, oh, like there's space here. There's no space in LA. Everything is all up against each other. And there's just, it's so much. I enjoy it. I love it, but you don't realize maybe how uptight you've gotten until you get out of it for a little while.
Absolutely. And it creates this tension, this anxiety within you. I mean, I think that's why I try to avoid social media as much as I can, because I feel like every time, not anymore, but in the beginning when I first moved out there, I was constantly comparing myself to, I used to look at my buddies and not in an envious way, but I was like, oh man, he's doing this. Why am I not outdoors doing that? Because I was indoors reading or doing something, you know, unproductive, you know, and I felt like I was always comparing my life to other people. And now I think I'm in a really comfortable spot with, I'm okay with who I am and where I am in life. Everyone's journey is different.